right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The State of the Nation discussion starts right now. My guest already with me here in studio, Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator for Makueni. Asante for making time. Honorable Eddie Okech, Senator for Migori, thank you so much for making time. And Charles Owino, Chairman, KIMC, thank you very much for making time. And Owino, I'll start with you here. We see now that the High Court has issued orders directing the Inspector General of Police to ensure that police do not hide their identity, faces, or even registration number of their vehicles when deployed to demonstrations. The police have also been ordered to wear name tags displaying their service number as part of their uniform. This order comes from a petition by LSK. But you're the one with the most experience here in terms of law enforcement. What is the standard operating procedure? And is it really necessary for what we've seen so far? And we'll show some of the pictures there where police are covering their faces, they're using unmarked vehicles. What necessitates that?
I don't know to what extent that is unless I look at it, but I know because of tear gas, sometimes police officers put on tear gas masks because they get so much involved. But there's nothing wrong with police officers putting on name tags, though many a times during riots or demonstrations, police tend to put on the jungle uniform, the operation uniform, which majorly you don't put name tags, but they are marked with names on them, the operation uniforms. The names are marked. You'll find your name there. And if it is the general duty uniform, the blue one or the normal administration police uniform, then usually they have name tags. But you cannot go to operations with name tags because they'll mostly fall out. But if court is of the opinion that maybe individual persons may be coming, like cases where you've had complaints of abductions, I think that maybe that is what is prompting somebody to go to court and police to give such orders. But still remember, the DCI officers don't operate in uniform. They'll still operate in unmarked vehicles. That is the standard procedure. So I don't know how that would be affected, whether DCI officers, because at times, like you know, in the last demonstrations, there were complaints that there were criminals who entrenched into the peaceful demonstrators. And if they are criminals entrenched, then it calls for DCI officers at times to get involved in supporting the persons managing riot, to maybe pick individuals who could be criminals in these teams. So you may not per se just say that these DCI officers cannot get involved in such operations if need be. And in those cases, they will use unmarked cars. They will not have uniforms because that is their standard operations. But there's nothing wrong with asking police to put on, have their name tags on their jacket, because that is standard procedure. The operation jackets have name tags. But tear gas masks, because they are so much involved, they may still put on their tear gas mask. But also,
so what impact does this order have then when it comes to dealing with riots? Because you're saying the SOPs for DCIs, they come with unmarked vehicles and in plain clothes, but now that has been expressly been outlawed.
I think it serves the interest of the individual who went to court, who maybe has a feeling that there were abductions, and that they want to be clear that the persons, if there are abductions, then it ought not to be the police involved in any abduction. I think that is what has prompted this. But you cannot stop the DCI from operating the way they are supposed to operate. You cannot ask them to put on uniforms when they usually operate in civilian clothes. You cannot ask them to have GK vehicles. They don't have. They are using unmarked vehicles. Not actually unmarked, but civilian plate vehicles.
Like the ones we are showing on screen, is that the normal SOP?
Which one?
The ones you're seeing on screen now. This was during the riots. You can see the unmarked Subarus there, of course.
No, unless it is a covert operation. Yeah.
So a protest is not considered a covert operation?
No, it's not.
So then this was unnecessary?
I don't know. The persons involved in the operations would be able to explain that, the purpose of having done that. But also equally, you may find that in ordinary operations, is okay, but they could have had a good reason. The DCI could have had a good reason for having done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie, will this enhance accountability in any way?
Thank you, Tower, and good morning to all Kenyans who are tuning in at this moment. I think my simple answer is no. Because this is an attempt to unmask the police. And this is what we would call a pseudo-unmasking. This is not proper unmasking. I think the proper unmasking of the police is unmasking, one, the political mask that allows some of the policemen to operate in this way. And then two, the what I would call the unlawful masking of the police, because police by design have got some very critical role, whether during protest or not during protest, to maintain law and order, to preserve peace, to protect life and property, and prevent and detect any crime, to the extent that apprehension of criminals in any scenario is based on that larger factor of maintaining law and order. But what we are seeing during protest is a faction of some policemen who allowed by some political masks and some lawful mask some lawful structures, right, that masks them to do these kind of things. Because like, the senior most policeman in the house, actually, somebody who has served in the police service in this country, rightfully so, or Charles Oluna said, is that there are some particular actions that the police will be forced then to use things like unmarked vehicles or things like hidden identity in some particular scenarios. But to the extent that they are lawful, then it will be able to meet its own mandate. We have seen, Trevor, where a policeman will take you to court, for instance, and then give unlawful complaints before the magistrate because there's political masking to it. We have seen a number of places where police, even not only during protest, will apply for things like summons, warrants, and even search warrants, and any other legal processes that have been masked to be illegal by the political class, and sometimes the law protects the police to do something unlawful. So I think that the answer is not necessarily some of these rogue pronouncements that we have seen in our courts, because our courts have also become politically masked. They make some of the most ridiculous decisions nowadays, and I don't know why this is in our justice system.
So you don't think this was the right move?
This is not a right move. I think that the right move that we must deal with as a country is this silent power that has been given to political class to be able to mask the law enforcers in this country, and even the Judicial Service Commission in this country, to do things that are unlawful to Kenyans. And therefore, even if you unmask the police by putting identity and by not giving them the physical mask, they will still do acts of impunity if they are protected by wrong political class that we continue seeing in this country.
Okay.
And that is the core fundamental issue that we must deal with, and even that is what the Gen Z movement sought to deal with, the idea of proper leadership based on integrity and values that can be able to serve the Kenyan public.
Okay. Manzo, will this help in terms of accountability in any way?
Yes, it will. If you look at the picture in standard page 8, you can see that police officer arrestee Gen Z peaceful demonstrator. He's wearing, something which look like those used by Yasser Arafat, and if you look, he has completely concealed his identity. We have a constitution in this country, and everybody should be, follow the law, including the police. Unfortunately, politics have also infiltrated. For example, when we were doing the demonstrations for Azimio, there was a certain police officer who had the habit of attempting to assassinate Raila Odinga. He would spray his car with live bullets 7-8 times. Honestly, that is a criminal within the police force, and is protected by the government in power at that particular moment. And I'm sure if they had, succeeded in killing Raila Odinga, the country will go even into something close to civil war. But you see, that's a particular individual within police. And he was the only one doing it all the time. You know, therefore, there are illegal acts being committed by the police. Our work at the Law Society of Kenya is to make sure that the law is followed. There's a police act. If the police are not happy with their act, then they should amend it to bring all things, all this what they want to do. But there are United Nations standards, operations of police all over the world. The police should ordinarily be uniform. Ordinarily, the operations of DCI, even the DCI must have an identity card, so that they don't rain terror on innocent people. The angle which politics have brought it, you have heard William Ruto making promises that there will be no more people found dead in Rivayala. But I think this time now, with these people dressed like Yasser Arafat and covering themselves completely, they did quite a number of abductions. Yeah. Those people have never been seen today, and they are people's children. Most probably they are innocent. So what the police have been doing is to become the court, become the judge, arrest you, you know, determine that you should die or should be abducted. First of all, abduction is illegal all over the world. Yeah. And this cannot be used in a totally lawless country by armed militias. Okay. And therefore, you know, the law society and the courts are perfectly in order to put order. Yeah. If you have committed an offense, take me through a due process. Okay. And I will come and challenge you in court as a police officer. Okay. The police officers never follow the law in relation to riots. There is a penal code and there is a public order act. The minister in charge of interior, who is a very good lawyer, has failed to make regulations. He is using expired regulations and sometimes attempts to make regulations on television. Regulations are made by parliament. Okay. So I want to say that there has been lawlessness generally within the police force, and the police force have a duty to follow the law. If they don't follow the law, then we must go to court and give orders to the IG. And if the IG doesn't obey these orders, then we must take him for contempt of court and lock him up. There's nobody about the law in the country.
Charles Manzo says that the police never follow the law during riots.
You know, this is our country, and the best thing to do is to be fair to the nation. Number one, police officers ought not to take collective responsibility. Police officers take individual, and I'm happy he has just said a particular officer. And I don't understand why so far you've not complained against this officer to be dealt with. You talked about things which happened in another government. I think now you have, so you need to, if there's a particular, no, you talked about Raila Odinga shot at, yes. So if it is this government, you need to complain against that individual police officer and not brand the whole police service that protects you. Interestingly, you may even have come here with a police driver or even a police bodyguard. At the same time, you are branding all of them. Let us be fair to the police service for the difficult job that they do. He's a legislator and he's talking about laws which are obsolete. I don't know what they are doing in those positions because
it is Kidiki, not us.
No.
He's the minister.
But yes,
the law says the minister will.
Yes, but
so you can not the legislator.
Just a minute. Even if the minister brings up an issue, it will be a bill which any other Kenyan who is a legislator can draft and bring into place. I think Ruku is now doing well, but I don't think Chapter 56 laws of Kenya is obsolete. You may correct me in case it is obsolete. And
the regulations.
They are regulations.
The regulations are obsolete.
What makes them obsolete? Because
they expire after 10 years under the Statutory Instruments Act.
It's okay, but my position is very clear. The Constitution is not obsolete, and the parameters are very clear. That any demonstrations, any public meetings, any presentations must be peaceful, peaceable and unarmed. And equally, the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4, which was one of the biggest gains in our Constitution, rights have limits. And it is very basic that when you enjoy your rights and fundamental freedoms, you don't prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. These are very basic things that we need to handle collectively as a country. There are some issues that not everything is legislated, not everything is written. And some of these things we must agree on. When the police is wrong, we must agree in this place the police is wrong. When the public is wrong, we must also agree in this place the public is wrong. So when you want to encourage people not to notify the police and then call the law obsolete, and you are a legislator, it's a very big shame for this nation that legislators can say laws are obsolete and they cannot even bring these things in the House to be discussed or even sponsor a bill. So I think what is most important is we look at our country as a country and we stop being petty as a country. We must support the police, we must support the public, and we must work as a team. For example, the Constitution is very clear that if you want to change a government, you change it in accordance to the provisions of the Constitution. Then you hear somebody saying, a new dawn, we are going to remove the head of state tomorrow from State House. Those are things that should not be in Kenya. We are quite a country that, if you look at Kenya in this region, we are the only country that has been fairly democratic. And if we want to continue with our democracy, we must ensure that we look at the law in its the whole sum of the law, not just looking at one part of the law and leaving the other. So what I'm saying is, it's our country. I cannot support the police when an individual police officer when he's wrong, but equally the leaders need to lead from the front and ensure that what is not right should be done.
I don't agree with Charles on the issue of the removal of the president. I think that the reading of Article 1 of the Constitution is very clear, and I think that if there is peaceful demonstration that then might force a government out of power because people are exercising their sovereign power, there is no problem with that. But I do also agree with him on the sense that, in our Constitution, if you article, I think it's Article 243 and 244 read together,
yes,
we moved as a country from a police force to a police service. But then we have not had the right leadership and the right political goodwill to be able to live to the tenets of that particular move from a police force to a police service. So that, the requirements of those two articles, which are supreme, even the Police Act, are not followed by the police, because I think that the police who are not masked, who are in uniform and who are on the streets, have equally been very brutal to Kenyans. They have equally been very unprofessional to Kenyans. If you read Article 244, the first thing that the police are supposed to do is to thrive to professionalism and discipline among its members, to the extent that that particular article requires already the ideas of accountability, transparency, requires the issue of complying to certain standards of human rights and fundamental freedoms that Dan Maanzo is talking about. The problem has been lack of that goodwill and protection by the political class to do these very wrong things that we keep on seeing the police doing. Yeah. And I think that if as a country we must have a honest conversation. We must have a honest conversation on the idea of wrong political class, because the people who have militarized and used the police in a wrong way has been the political leadership. In what my brother, when you listen to my brother Charles Owino speaking, is almost just short of saying that the police are supposed to protect the president against the people, not to serve the president the same way they are serving the people. Because if you're saying if people go and riot, or rather protest in a way that is peaceful and express themselves, some of these authorities, and then they are meted with excessive force and professional conduct of the police, we've seen people in uniform, police in uniform, basically, clobbering people in public without even provocation. When we were in Parliament the other day, we saw women sitting and protesting in Parliament, and then the police ends up clobbering them in front of us. We saw Senator Sifuna running to help young people who were being shot at with a live bullet. At what point do we justify shooting of young people who are barely armed with live bullets in parliament, in a house of the people. These are unprofessional, militarized, and bad conduct that then are used to protect a certain individuals in government and to protect a certain people in government. And that is the question that we must deal with, so that we move from that police force that we used to have, protecting people in government, to a police service.
But where does the individual accountability come in? Because like what Uno was saying, that it's specific police officers, not all of them.
And that's what I'm saying, that it comes not only to the people who are seen to have masks, or who are seen to have no identity, because as Charles rightfully said, there are some police units, whether in the administrative police or the DCI, who must operate in a certain way. Like covert operations are accepted anywhere in the world because depending on what the police are dealing with. The only problem is going to an extent that you're now doing unlawful things, like unlawful arrests, unlawful abductions, all these kind of things that are not professional and not required by the Constitution is what we should be fighting for. And what I'm saying is that the confidence that the police gets to be able to be that unprofessional or to be able to do those kind of conducts is a political question, protected by the political class, knowing that even if we do these misconduct and misdeeds, there won't be we won't be held accountable because we are marked and protected by the political class.
Let me bring in Manzo on this first of all and hear what Manzo thinks. Where does the individual accountability come in?
First and foremost, there is a law. When you deal with the Public Order Act, Chapter 56 of the laws of Kenya, is still a valid law, although it's a colonial law. And then you have the Constitution of Kenya, and you have the Penal Code. Now, what the last regulations under that act were made by Amos Wako when he was Attorney General. And when in 2013 the Statutory Instruments Act came into power, those regulations have to be reviewed every 10 years, and as soon as 10 years are there, they expire. But the law says the minister in charge will make regulations, then bring them to Parliament for approval. Now, this is what the regulations say. You see, everybody is free to demonstrate, and then peaceful demonstrations. If the peaceful demonstrations turn out to be riotous, then an inspector of police must make proclamation. And that's why the police have lost all cases of anybody they have ever arrested and taken to court on demonstrations. So first, the violence is unleashed by, and brutality is unleashed by police. So this particular person is supposed to announce loud and clear that the demonstrations have become riotous, and give Kenyans time to clear. So after 15 minutes, if after 15 minutes, if you don't, that's the law, it is. Then now whatever happens to you follows. You know. By the way, even they are not responsible under the law if there was proclamation, but they never proclaim. In fact, any peaceful demonstrators who are seen, they are just fired, with tear gas and live bullets. Under the current government allows that to go. You see, first of all, it's the police to investigate. The ODPP is the one to prosecute. So the police never investigate the police. The ODPP never, prosecute anyone. Of course, we are allowed to do private prosecution. Even Law Society of Kenya can privately, prosecute any individual. But we also have now the police oversight, authority. And there are many, many other structures to make sure that there is fairness. I want to say that police do a very good job. And they have a very big role. But unfortunately, the police force has been politicized.
Exactly.
And the IG and the police officers have now, they have joined the ruling political party. So they're just protecting one individual against Kenyans. And that is the most unfortunate thing. What I want to tell the police is that, even when you call riots, don't take the law also into your own hands. Don't become a court, execute, and then get away with it. I think it's a high time this must be followed. And any particular individual police officer found committing, criminal acts must also face the law. Individually.
First of all, I'm happy that Honorable Mwanzo has been very clear that that Chapter 56 laws of Kenya that regulates public meetings, gatherings, and processions is valid. I'm happy about that. And if it is valid, there are procedures. Yeah. And what I want to say is, yes, when the police is wrong, mention the police is wrong and attack the police. But when you totally give the public a clear path to do wrong things and you don't mention it, I've just seen Senator has just said that, Okecha has just said that young men walked into Parliament. I think he must have opened the gate and they got into Parliament and they went and ate their food and destroyed things and burnt some parts of Parliament. And Okecha is saying that's a great thing. He's clapping, telling the public that that is great. Okecha, the three of us, if things remain constant, you should be the latest to go. Mwanzo and I should leave this world much ahead of you. You are young, you have a future in politics, but I want you to grow truthful to the public that you serve. Tell them, tell the young people of your age that being obedient to law, ensuring that there's law and order is important. The police are not protecting an individual in the name of president. The president is also a Kenyan. He also deserves protection. But I'm talking about a situation in this country where we don't want to remove governments and procedurally and constitutionally, even if it is through peaceful protests, and then we end up in a situation like Somalia. You remember the men were saying they are faceless, they are nameless. Okay. When you remove a government through that process, who becomes the president? Who takes over? Okay. You may end up becoming like Somalia, like Sudan, like Libya. Yeah. That is what
hold on 1 second. I just want to show you on the screen what's happening right now. The athletes, I think the ones who came from the Paris Olympics are now in the Bekasi Garrison heading to Eldoret State Lodge. And you can see there the PS for sports, that's engineer Toom, I believe, from here. Yes, that's a PS for sports engineers Toom, and the CS is also there, but what you're seeing on the screen is the PS engineer Toom. All right, and of course you can also see the new CS, that's Kipchumba Murkomen, shaking a leg a little bit before they head out to State Lodge in Eldoret to meet the president. This is after the performance at the Olympics in Paris. We were 18, about 11 medals, which is a good performance by any standards there. All right, so we'll put that on the screen and split and see and show you what's going on there. As a chance, you're finishing your views on this. Okay. They are now heading to Eldoret to meet the president at the State Lodge. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that it is important that you don't put the police in a fix, because we are saying if there is supposed to be demonstration as per Article 37 of the Constitution, what we need to do is to ensure that there is a convener of any meeting, whether it is, if it is countrywide, in every place where we are going to have demonstrations, let us agree that there will be a convener, and that this convener will notify the police. It is not the police to license, it's to notify the police 3 days before and not more than 15 days before. And then in the process, if, for example, that venue is booked for one reason or another, then they can agree on a different date. But when you notify the police, like the last one, Nani, they were saying they were going to present a petition to Office of the President. So what they needed to say is that there should be a convener, and then they say we'll meet in Uhuru Park at this time. Then we'll leave Uhuru Park. This is the route we will follow. We'll follow Valley Road, get into Haile Selassie, get into Parliament Road, get into Harambee Avenue, present our petition. And after presenting your petition, you leave. That is the procedure. But we cannot have demonstrations which are faceless, where there is no convener. That is what the law provides for. If all these things are done constantly, people are notified, we agree on the route. But this is a case where you find that, because the Constitution is clear, you don't prejudice, your rights are limited. You don't prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. Yes. Somebody has his mother, Okechi is bringing his mother in ambulance from Migori to Nairobi Hospital. The road is closed. You lose your mother on the road. Your rights will be infringed. So what we are saying is, let us be organized. Let us be truthful in what we are doing as Kenyan, and you are legislators. You have people who have voted you, people who respect you, people who know you. Tell Kenyans the truth.
Okay.
Tell them that these are the standard procedures. Don't wait for somebody to go and loot a supermarket and steal, and then you say they are government goons. When somebody is unfortunately neutralized in the process, the persons you are calling a government goons, you now own them. Now say this is our person, a peaceful demonstrator who has been neutralized. Okay. So what I'm saying is, let us not be partisan. If we want to be honest as a country, let us follow the law. Let us ensure that we don't prejudice the rights and freedoms of others.
Okay.
We have many small people here in River Road. They have taken loans. They want to hawk. They want to sell their products to pay back the loans. If we have riots every day, we are demonstrating every day, it can't work.
Okay.
We are a civilized nation. Yeah. We must go back to civility.
Okay.
And I can tell you, whatever happens, the police have a duty to protect everyone. You are not going to burn somebody's bus, somebody's shop, going to loot a supermarket, and then you expect the police to come with gloves and greet you. And that is why we have the Public Order Act. I know Okech is looking for votes.
Okay. No,
I'm not looking for votes here.
It's
okay,
so let's finish and
but
then
it's important that I say,
yes,
we will not protect the police where they are wrong.
Okay.
But can we agree that Chapter 56 that regulates the processions, the meetings, be followed before we attack the police?
I just want to say this and very quickly.
1 minute, I'll take a quick break.
Just very quickly.
Yes.
And I don't want to belittle in any way the contribution that Charles Owino has had in this country. But I want to tell my brother Charles Owino that every article of this constitution that you are reading here has been as a result of consistent mass protests and mass accountability of regimes that have been putting this country under some kind of tyrannical and bad governance. Okay. And to the extent that young people came out, to protest against bad governance in this country, to protest against high cost of living, which even myself, I participated in last year, and I was met by a lot of police brutality among other leaders who were protesting last year on the high cost of living. You cannot underrate that, and you cannot underestimate that, because we are not talking about these issues in vacuum. We are talking about these issues based on what we have experienced going on in the country. And the truth is, the police in Kenya have brutalized Kenyans even while there's peaceful demonstrations, like we saw during this entire Gen Z protest. We had instances where Gen Zs would be able to inform police that they're going to this place. For instance, Sabasaba that they conducted, they informed the police you're going to this particular place and we will organize, and they came in masses, did their thing and went home. The next day they informed the police we are going to Kenyatta Hospital, where is a very risky place, and this is how we will process to this Kenyatta Hospital, donate our blood, and then go back home. The problem is that protests turn rioters only and only if the police chooses to be able to meet them with violence. Okay. We have seen this at a number of times in the country, and that is the context which you are speaking, that then my brother Charles Owino must be able to speak to and make sure that the police does not become unprofessional and archaic in terms of doing
Okay, I'll take a quick commercial break. We're back with much more in just a bit. When we come back now, we shift gears and talk about a bit of politics to see their dilemma for Kalonzo, tough options ahead of 2027, and at the end, are they back on the campaign trail? That's a conversation we'll have in just a bit.